Welcome to the International Art Doll Registry podcast. I am Leslie, and I'm going to be talking with Bambi about the medium of using fabric to create one-of-a-kind art dolls. Hi, Bambi. We're going to have a really fun discussion about fabric art dolls. What does it mean to make a fabric art doll, and what materials are used to make them? Those are a little bit different because they involve fabric or felt or mixed medium versus the polymer doll. We're going to include them in the jury show for May for sure, but I'm thinking that we're going to start including that category period in the jury shows. I want to kind of encourage people to think about the IDR for it.
So we don't have a separate category for them already?
No, because it's hard to compare fabric art dolls the same way as one looks at the polymer dolls.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah, no, that
Yeah.
makes perfect sense.
And so that's the reason why I want this to come up to let people realize that we could have this grow on us. And so that there is a spot for fabric artists in IDR.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Well, one, I think we need to describe what kind goes into the fabric art. As you mentioned before, I mean, fabric dolls have been around for ages and how they can be one of a kind.
The only other thing I think we might want to touch on is materials. Are these people, do they do like needle felting?
Yes, because you'd have needle felting, you'd have felt dolls, you'd have your fabric dolls. So that's the reason anything that would be fiber oriented would be under that category. Have you had any experience, Bambi, with doing some fiber art dolls?
Well, when I first discovered needle felting when I was looking for ways to make an armature. I was just searching for some videos on how to's for doing an armature, and I found several good fiber artists who start with exactly the same armature that sculptors do. And so that's how I first learned about that. Prior to that, I would sculpt my dolls' heads, hands, and then their feet or their shoes. And then I would use quilt batting to pad my armature. And then I would sew clothes, or I say sew very loosely because I oftentimes would glue my clothes patterns together, and because I'm not much of a sewer. So, but I wasn't happy with the way the quilt batting held up. It seemed like it kind of came apart, and it wasn't very strong, especially when I wanted to move my dolls or pose them in different ways. I may have mentioned before that I've kind of been getting into a little of using my dolls for stop motion. And so I learned that if I needle felted the body, the torso, the legs, and the arms, that it would hold up a lot better. It makes it a lot stronger. If I'm changing the poses more often for stop motion video, they seem to last a little bit longer, and they don't really fall apart as much. I also learned of ways of using um, fiber arts and needle felting for making hair, using it for like facial hair and those kind of things. So there's so many opportunities to be able to mix things up and add more realism to our dolls when we can add some of those textural elements.
I agree. And luckily, with the IDR, we also have two members that also do the fabric art doll. One of them is Alexandra Sandu, and she does a doll that's mobile, but it's more the ragdoll type style. But she makes her dolls one of a kind because she paints each face individually, and she does a
Wow.
beautiful, beautiful job of that. And then Catherine Arms, I find her dolls very interesting because she focuses them on the goddesses. All of her fabric art is representing the different symbols that go with each one of the goddesses that she made. So they're going to be explored or explained a little bit more in our upcoming issue of the IDR Art Doll magazine.
It's wonderful too to be able to open up because there are just so many materials and things that you can use for doll making. We've talked about it in the past, from when people used to make dolls from leaves and corn husks till, the fabulous porcelain dolls that we see today. So there's just so many things that you can use. It's never a good idea for us to limit ourselves or put ourselves into a box where we always want to be trying new materials, I think, to expand our artwork and stuff.
Well, and as you said too, we also use what's available to us. Not everybody can afford a kiln or be able to get access to polymer or whatever. So that need to still create that character, that doll, um, we shouldn't be limited by just the stuff that if I don't have it, I can't do it.
It's so true. It's so true because we are so resilient, and even if we can't get whatever we can't get, we're going to find a substitute. We're going to find a way to let those creative juices out.
Well, and that's what's going to be really interesting and fun is because of the planning committee for the conference that we're holding in Italy, we discussed expanding the categories of our jury show. By expanding, we can then invite more artists to join, as well as keeping the judging easier when looking at the comparing of the submissions. This is just a rumor for now. With this beginning of the new year, we will be looking at a category to be added to the jury shows to where it's going to be adding a fiber arts category so that some of our doll makers that maybe have not been able to feel like they can participate in our show will now have that ability to be able to do that.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely think, broadening those categories and opening them up is just going to get more people involved. We're going to get more participation from different people who at first look at it and go, "Oh, I can't enter that contest because it's just for porcelain dolls or it's just for fiber art dolls or whatever." We have such the other thing I find the more artists I talk to, you work in one medium for a long, long time, but before long, you want to expand. You want to try something new. You want to try some new techniques. You want to either attempt a doll that's something like you've never tried before, or include some new mediums or techniques into your current project or your current style, that sort of thing.
Oh, I agree, and especially because I do love to work with needle felting, and when you do needle felting, that is not at all friendly like what sculpting in clay can be sometimes, or vice
Oh my
versa.
gosh. Some of the felters I've seen, they can make the most detailed expressions in their dolls' faces and facial features. It just amazes me how I have such a difficult time sculpting an eyelid with a piece of clay, but this person can sculpt an eyelid with a piece of wool.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Or
just
what I find
amazing.
fascinating, yeah, well, no, I find fascinating too because needle felting is, in theory, as you said, wool, which is what felt is. But felt dolls are even totally different than what needle felting dolls are. Because your felting dolls will sometimes be where they goes over an existing piece, like felt going over a existing head that gets stretched and molded that way too. So I mean,
Yes,
I
yes.
yeah, I've never totally seen the whole felted doll process, but they certainly have a different, unique look to them as well.
Oh, yeah.
And it's probably some of the outfits that they make on them that catches my attention too, because the whole doll is all and felt.
Well, certainly all of us of a certain age who were used to all of those stop motion cartoons from the early 50s and 60s, those were all needle felted dolls. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, those guys, they were all needle felted. When you look back now and you think, oh,
Oh
that's
yeah.
right. That's what that is. Now I know why I love it so much.
Well, when you think of how long it took to just make a minute of movie, trying
Oh
to
my
move
goodness.
every aspect of the doll.
Since I've started playing with stop motion, it amazes me, that whenever you're talking about, 50 frames to get a second of movie, you're thinking, oh my goodness, I have to take 50 pictures to get 1 second of video.
Well, and that's it. And it's also interesting because there you say again another prime example on how your dolls are inspiring you to go into a different direction than you never would have thought of going.
Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely. I think that's one of the greatest things about doll making. You're just making like little people to populate your world.
Well, and that's what will be really exciting to see because that's what I'm hoping is that with more information that we can get out on the IDR May show, not to put all the other jury shows in the shadows, but the May one will be an opportunity for a lot of us to get together and meet and actually in person. And that will also be a fun,
Oh,
interesting.
yeah. It
experience
is
too.
always, always fun to get together with like-minded people because you just have found your tribe and you have found people that are perfectly happy to listen to you talk about your passion all day long. We don't often find that.
Your eyes don't totally glaze over unless the Google
No,
translator doesn't
they're
work.
enthusiastic. They add to the conversation.
Exactly. Hopefully you put Italy on your schedule to come on over.
Yes, yes, and I've already been prepping my husband and buttering him up for it.
Thank you for joining me, Bambi,
Yeah.
as we were talking about the different styles and mediums that dolls really can be created in, not just limited to
Oh,
polymer.
oh my gosh,
And
yeah, I know it.
this is going to be exciting that I think that as we expand our IDR to expand our family a little bit bigger, right?
Certainly, yes, certainly, yes. The more I think the more we can open up for people and draw in people who might not otherwise feel that they could participate. Absolutely. I think it's just gonna make it better.
Yes. As we're all one big family, one big doll
Yeah.
happy family.
Yeah.
Well, then until next time, Bambi, we will see you.
Okay. Good talking to you. Bye, everybody.